Welcome to the PIO podcast, a place for all things public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local government. An open forum to learn, grow, and develop your public information skills. Your host, Robert Tornabene, is a public information officer with over 10 years in the field and 27 years of law enforcement background. In each episode, we will explore different aspects of the public information officer profession. Weekly, we will delve into the field of public information by talking to other PIOs. So sit back and enjoy this episode.
Good evening. This is episode 44 of the PIO podcast, and today we have on the show Dr. Jeff Thompson. Jeff is a detective with the NYPD, and he's a doctor and dealing with stress reduction and mental health. Jeff, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, look, brother, I appreciate you having me. I've been really looking forward to this, so this is awesome.
You know, you're not the typical guest that we have on the show, but one of the reasons why I wanted somebody like you on the show is you talked about stress reduction at the NAOA conference, talk about mental health, and one of the things that PIOs deal with a lot is the amount of stress that they are under to be accurate and to address the media, and they're in a stressful situation when a crisis occurs. We have to figure out ways to deal with that stress. So that's why I said I got to get Jeff on the show. So that's why you're here. So let's talk about your background a little bit so we can piece it together for our listener.
Yeah, sure. I guess you want me to tell you a bit more about me while I'm on the show? Yeah. No, I got so 18-year veteran detective with the NYPD. I always say, quote unquote, that's my day job. I love it. And also I like to keep myself busy. So I'm also an adjunct associate research scientist up at Columbia Medical Center. And it's a really, really long name of the place, of the center that I work in. So basically it's just neuroscience and resilience and also positive mental health and suicide prevention. I'll just leave it at that. And then honestly, I teach at a couple of universities, and I do teaching and training all over the country and world, trying to look, anytime I can share this information with people, I feel lucky and privileged. But here's the key thing, and I know your vast experience as well. Everything that I do has, and when I do teachings and trainings or just promoting, it's got to be evidence-based. It's got to be grounded in research and data. Anecdotal stories are good and wonderful, but the anecdotal stories are supposed to bring the research and evidence to life. Everything can't be anecdotal stories that people say, oh, well, this is how I do it, so it works. In all my different types of work that I do. And so basically, the long story short is the researcher hat that I wear up at Columbia, I use to implement stuff in my work in the NYPD and other police agencies as well. And with the NYPD, I'm really fortunate at the moment. I'm their first ever mental health and wellness coordinator. And it gives me the opportunity to be really try and bring in certain programs that trying to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. And it's not just uniform. It's the civilian/professional staff as well.
So let me ask you this. You're delivering this now, some of this training to NYPD staff and the officers and stuff. How did you get leadership to turn around and say, we need this stuff? Or was it, because I know a lot of places they say we got to have it, but the question is it's the dollars, it's the time, does it work? Yeah,
I'm smiling as you were saying that, because it's taken a lot of personal resilience and a lot of uphill fighting. But here's the thing too, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. In my agency or a bunch of the other agencies I worked with, fortunately, we've made great strides with as far as promoting positive mental health and fighting the stigma for seeking help. It's just, so here's the thing, trying to take research and implementing it. Well, first, I'm not the type to say, hey, we should do some sort of resilience stuff, and then that's it. I like to say, hey, we should do some sort of resilience stuff, and here's one way we can do it, and the stuff that I put together, because otherwise people, you don't want to be another one of those knucklehead great idea people. You got to actually have a plan in a way that it's actually doable, because some of the research studies outside policing on resilience and stress reduction, they're really good. They're just not practical to implement. And one example I always give is the number one practice in any research study that I've come across, and I've worked with some really great people across the globe outside of Columbia as well, it's controlled breathing practices, whether you call it meditation, whatever I just call it controlled breathing. But it's, some of these studies show that the impact is really good at if you do it for 20 minutes a day. And I look at it, I go, okay, I'm not going to argue the findings of that, but then you go from the research world or the studies done in the lab to the real world in policing. And let's talk about specifically a PIO. I'm not going to recommend to a PIO doing 20 minutes of controlled breathing because I don't have time for 20 minutes. So it's that idea of now, how do we take it and modify it? And like, for example, the one program I do, 5 minutes a day. That's realistic. That's where I'd say, one thing I'll share with you too is when people say, oh, there's one thing I can't stand. Maybe I'm getting old and grumpy. Well, I know I'm getting old. Maybe I'm getting grumpy as I'm getting older. I can't stand it when people tell me, oh, Jeff, I don't have time for it. Now, imagine if I asked you, hey, Robert, why don't you participate in one of my programs? And be like, oh, sorry, Jeff, I just don't have time. I'd be like, no. Let's write down on a piece of paper everything you did today. And you're going to tell me you don't have, at the very least, 5 minutes to do breathing? I said, tell me you don't want to do it, and I'll be okay with that. Fine. You don't want to do it, whatever. And here's one thing that I've been practicing a lot. I came across this. I read this on, I think, Instagram or somewhere. Next time, and I'm saying this to me, by the way, but if anyone's listening, I hope they are, maybe this will help them too. It's a reminder for myself. Next time I say to myself, I don't have time for whatever it is, change it in your head and say it's not a priority and see if your perspective changes. And for me, that's truly been profound, fitting in the stuff that are priorities in my life. And hopefully for your listeners, somebody will find that helpful. Well, hopefully more than one person.
That is a really interesting way of looking at it. I like that idea. I'm going to have to, I've had some struggles on my, I'll be honest. Everybody has struggles. Everybody has doubts and anxiety and stress, and that all kinds of drags it in there. That's a great way to look at it. I don't have, what's my priority? What's more important? I like that. That's a good way of putting it into perspective for somebody. I think that's a great way of putting it. Here, let me ask you a question though. So PIOs, we work these unusually long hours. We have the always, when the crisis happens, an extraordinary violent situation, death, mayhem, whatever it might be. Why is it so important for us to manage ourselves? I read that somewhere that you had made a comment about that, managing ourselves. What do you mean by that?
Well, so here's the thing with real resilience. And sometimes when you look at people managing the stresses in their life, and I'm not talking about diagnosing anxiety or depression. That's not the kind of work I'm involved in. I'm talking about like everyday work type stuff. When you look at it in terms of resilience, I would be like, all right, well, what are the stresses in your life? How do we reduce them? How do we remove them? Now you look at it in the world of PIOs. I'm hoping people are laughing as they're hearing this because it's built in every single day stresses. That is the job. Stressors, that anxiety feeling, that's there. So here's when I call this real resilience. First of all, acknowledge it. It is there. It is part of the job. Then it's all about the word you said before, and I'm going to say it again a few more times. It's all about perspective then. And here are the two most important terms when I talk about resilience are perspective and control. First of all, coming to terms with there's certain things beyond your control. And this is life in general. But specifically in PIO, most of these incidents aren't pre-planned, and they're usually a bad incident. That's the whole idea. It's beyond your control. You didn't anticipate it. You didn't plan for that particular incident. But now with a more resilient perspective, it's coming back to control what you can. And no matter the external situation, we are always in charge and in control of something ourselves. And then when you sprinkle a little bit of psychology in there, what do I mean when we're in charge of ourselves? Our thinking, our emotions / feelings, and then our behaviors / actions. And one impacts the other. And it's all about pausing, taking a moment and collecting yourself. And you look at it for the PIOs out there trying to handle these situations because earlier on, years ago, I was in the PIO office for the NYPD and having helped launch the social media with my partner at the time and a couple of other people in handling terrorist incidents and having to respond to them and literally putting out tweets that individual tweets were read by 9 million people, I think one of them. It's that idea of that's there, that's built in, but it's the perspective of, and there's a few other, we can go down 100 more rabbit holes, but it's the idea of, okay, I don't control that. What do I control? Me. And here's the other number one tip, evidence-based. What do? Normalize it. Saying it's okay to feel some stress. It's okay to be feeling some anxiety, but then what do you do with it? But step one, name it. Naming it and normalizing it. That helps you just when you say, okay, I'm feeling stressed. It gives you a moment to slow down, but then the important step one's the most important until then you get to step two saying, well, what the hell do I do with it now? Don't let it, and there's all different practices to ensure it doesn't overwhelm you and consume you, but using it to motivate you.
So how do you normalize those factors? How do you do that?
Well, so if you're, again, for clarity, if you're feeling stressed in a situation, say you're going, lights and sirens to an incident, say there was a shooting or something, is it normal to be stressing over trying to get there on time, realizing, are the press already there? Where am I going to set them up? Is the chief there? How am I going to put together the comments? All those things, yet again, not my words, but as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, well, what are the tips that I can share with people? First say, okay, I'm stressing out. Literally catching yourself, and this is what I mean. Don't say it out loud, especially if there's other people in the car. You're going to sound like a weirdo. Say it in your head. I'm feeling stressed. And then and you just kind of chuckled. That's the whole idea. It chills you out a little bit, saying, all right, I'm being stressed. What do I need to do? And this is where if you have all those tasks flying around, and the first thing I think of another saying, and it's not mine, how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time. Break it up, little pieces. All right, what do I need to take? What do I need to do? Okay, I'll take care of this. And realize that instead of trying to fix it all at once or handle it all at once, that's just going to throw some stress and anxiety on top of what you're already experiencing. And why bother doing that? It's not fair to yourself.
I really like the way you put that into perspective. I think that is a great way to just one task at a time, eating the elephant, one bite at a time. I love that. Jeff, you wrote in Psychology Today, reframing it entails understanding that with perspective and control, we remind ourselves that we have control over how we view things. What do you mean by that?
So kind of like when I was talking about perspective and control before, but now when we talk about reframing, and there's another term in resilience and psychology called cognitive reappraisal. And that idea of reframing it, you're not making this situation disappear. That's not realistic. So how can you look at the situation differently? And again, using it as one of these, unexpected incidents that you're responding to, this is where, yet again, and I'm not just throwing out these terms for the hell of it. Here's the thing, and to go on a quick sidebar to that, I'm not going to go too off to the side, but the reason I use these terms, it's important because PIOs, we're professionals in what we do for a living. So it can't just be, oh, I'm just good at it, or I handle stress, or I know how to put together a press release or something like that. It's knowing what you're doing. That's what makes people experts. Some people are naturally good. The experts at it know what they're doing and know why it works so well, and they know what to avoid and why they're avoiding it. So a term I was just about to say was called self-efficacy. Believe it in yourself. And self-efficacy reminds you, this is how you reframe those situations. Like, yeah, it's good. I am responding to this job. And you know what? I'm qualified. I'm the best person to be doing this. And people are going to be relying on me, and I'm going to prove to them and myself that I can handle this because this is truly what I signed up for. And that's the idea of owning it. And that's the opposite of getting consumed by it. And here's the thing, as I'm smiling, as I'm saying it to you, because I need these reminders to myself. That's why I'm glad here doing this with you, to remind myself, practice what I preach. Yet again, when you do those kind of things, who's in charge? You're making those decisions. Yet again, whatever's going on in the outside world might be some of it beyond your control, but you're controlling that. And yet again, the ripple effect, that's your thinking, leads to you feeling a bit more calm, leads you to acting more calm. So again, it's that thinking, your emotions, and then your behaviors all interconnected. And that's simply reframing, or cognitive reappraisal, whichever term people want to use. And that's the thing of not just saying, oh, note again here too. Sometimes I sit here as I'm saying this, what could the salty guy or woman listening to this saying, oh, that's just look at everything with rosy colored, sunglasses or that. That's not what I'm saying. And if that's what you think I was saying, either A, I'm not being clear, or you only half listening. So maybe it's me not being clear. That's not what I'm saying. It's important to acknowledge the bad. And here's the other thing too, with this reframing cognitive reappraisal. If we automatically are going to acknowledge the bad's built in to our work, but not everything's bad. So if we make time for the bad, what else do we need to make time for? The good. And we can talk about that now or later if you want, how important gratitude practices are to resilience as well.
Let's talk about that, and then we'll jump into your two projects that you have. How about that?
Okay, cool. The number one research-backed practice in resilience is breathing. I'd say arguably, or not arguably, let's not argue. Hopefully we're not going to argue over this. Number two is, thank you. Number two are gratitude practices. And look, here you got a detective from the NYPD in New York City talking about gratitude. I will be the first to say when I was first reading it, like, maybe this is a little too soft. Then I realized it's hardcore resilience. And this is the thing, I'm not selling anything. This is the stuff that truly sells itself, because the only way people know that it works and they like it is by doing it themselves. And people, when they practice stuff like gratitude, and what do I mean by that? Yes, gratitude, being grateful, thankful for what you have, but not like, oh, thank you for the roof over my head. How about this? For anyone listening here, try doing this for a couple of days. At the end of every shift, think about something positive, good that happened during that shift, that day that you worked. And again, it's not negating or saying, oh, well, just forget about the bad. Odds are you spend time thinking about the bad because that's part of your job. I'm not saying ignore that, but if you made time for that, which you have to, why not also carve out a piece of time for the good? And this is why it truly is important for PIOs, with all the awfulness that you experience and deal with throughout your career. If that's all you ever focus on, that's not healthy. And that's the stuff that eats us alive from the inside out. These little practices, like a gratitude type of practice, really is the thing that helps create that balance. And look, you and all the other PIOs listening to this, it's something you sure as hell deserve. And I'm not sugarcoating that either. You do some really, really tough, hard work. You need these little things. And there's no one quick fix to it either. And like Dr. George Bonanno at Columbia, he talks about the flexibility of resilience and how he also talks about every one of us are resilient. Let's not mistake that either, especially in the PIO world. We're all resilient. It's just about enhancing it and having various different types of practices to cycle through, because if you do one every single day, you're gonna get bored and tired. So it's good to mix it up as well. And there's all different types of gratitude practices that I recommend people try them out. And here's the thing too, if you like it, bring in other people too. Or like, if you're married or whatever, you have little kids, do it with your spouse or your partner, or do it with your kids before bedtime. And here's the thing why I just emphasize do it before bedtime, if you can, or at the end of the day. But specifically, what do a lot of law enforcement have trouble with? Sleeping. Guess what? I'm sure how smart your listeners are. They know what I'm about to say next. If law enforcement officers have trouble with sleeping, guess what research has shown gratitude practices help with when you do them right before bedtime? Sleep.
Help you sleep. Nice.
Cliche win-win right there.
Right. Absolutely. I love it. That's awesome. All right, Jeff. So you have two projects. So we'll talk about let's talk about the Warrior 21 project first. How about that? Tell us about that.
Yeah. Okay. So Warrior 21 Warrior 21. It's a program that I developed after years of research in all different resilience programs. And of course, here I am thinking, like most people that design new programs, some of these are good, that one's great, but it's not as good as one that I can make. And here's my thing, I'll flat out say it now. It's similar to many other programs out there, because when they're all based on the same research, it can only be so different. And my particular program, Warrior 21, 21 days of short practices, roughly 10 to 15 minutes a day. Generally, how I do it is Monday to Friday. And it's done through a private Google Classroom app. So people can do it wherever they are. And it's recommended that, so for 21 days, each day has a keyword connected with it. So I'll just use day 4 is grit. I'll use that as an example. What I recommend, as soon as right after you wake up in the morning, you do 5 minutes of controlled breathing. You read a short article on the keyword of the day. In this case, day 4 is grit. It's research evidence-based, but written for the everyday audience like us. So I talk about Angela Duckworth's great research and work on grit, and a couple of other people. Then at the end of the article, there's a reflection for the rest of your day. So it's sort of like, okay, now that you read about grit, how are you going to implement some of the examples for your day? So that's what I recommend you do it as close to when you first wake up. And then in the evening, again, no surprise, there's a gratitude practice. And here's the thing, for the gratitude practice, it's for 21 days, and it's recommended you have a little notebook, or like there's a Warrior 21 book version now too. There's enough blank pages in the back where you can write it. Here's the kicker though. If you're talking about rewiring your brain and the neuroscience of resilience, with the gratitude practice, you can't repeat yourself over the 21 days. And it truly makes you think and look at your experiences differently. And notice how I said that too. It's not creating these moments, it's seeing these daily moments differently. In the gratitude practice, it's 3 things every night. One thing that made you happy, something somebody did nice for you, and something you did nice for somebody else. And this is the thing I tell people, when you do those practices, it's hard, and that's okay too. It just means you haven't been looking for this stuff. And this is what I'd say too, it's pushing you out of your comfort zone just the right amount. And as for adult learning, that's truly the best opportunities. And the last thing I'll say with the program too is it's been modified and adapted. It's been used in police academies. It's part of a graduate school program course. It's been taught to undergrads. I honestly, it's got to be close to 5,000 people across the world have done it, and mainly law enforcement and first responders. And here's the thing too, when it's done online, you can be doing it with other people from all over the country or even the world. And it's that interaction because you asked to write or share stuff during the program as well. And it's not, it's not these deep thoughts. It's just a couple of sentences. And then you get to see other people's perspectives and their take on it. And unfortunately, people seem to enjoy it, which makes me happy.
That's good. That's excellent. So you have a second project, the Awe Project. Wait, did I say that right? Awe Project? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So tell me about that one.
Okay, good. And I like how you said it first, because sometimes people don't understand me. Apparently, I have an accent being from New York. And the one time I was doing the pitch for the Awe Project, and they seemed to like it really well. It was only like a 5-minute pitch to this one agency. And they emailed me back afterwards, and they said, "Oh, we really enjoyed it. We want to implement the All Project, ALL." Oh. I'm like, that's not what I said for 10 times. Yeah, I'm glad you're laughing.
I'm laughing because I can see it. I can see it, and it's funny. It's entertaining.
Look, and by the way, humor is an important element of resilience as well. It's good to have a laugh.
And so, you know what? That's a great point, and that's one thing that I think the public, every time the news media, and let me jump off and talk about this real quick, but every time the news media shows officers standing around a crime scene, there's always going to be that officer that's standing there smiling, laughing, or whatever, and that's a coping skill. That's a skill to deal with the stress of what you're dealing with at that event. So it's a very common thing, and everybody talks about that academy training. And, there's always somebody who talks about it somewhere along the line at FTO. But, the general public does not see that much. They don't talk about that. And as a PIO, we might need to talk about that at a crime scene when there's a photo that shows up of an officer or a video of an officer laughing. And it's not a laughing matter, but it's their way of dealing with the stress of that event.
Yeah, no, you're very right about that. And it's funny, but not funny in the sense, when I was doing PIO work too, and I'd be on the scene, I'd try to give the patrol guys heads up, like, hey, look, there's cameras everywhere. I know how we use humor as a coping mechanism, just not now, or not while there's cameras there, because you don't want to be that guy. And usually it is the guy, let's be honest. It's the guy that's laughing or smiling, like, that's on you. Yeah. I tried to give you a heads up. But anyway, one other quick thing.
Go ahead.
One other quick thing with the Warr, or21, before I tell you a bit about the Warr project, because every now and then, I haven't had it in a while, but people are like, oh, wait, what's the name of the program? Warr21. Like, oh, no, you can't use that. I'm like, why? Does somebody own it? I think I trademarked it already. They're like, no, you can't use that word. I go, oh, I got what you mean, warrior. I'm like, yeah. I go, guess what? I'm using it, and I've been using it, and I'm not changing it. Words are only toxic if they're used by toxic people in a toxic way quite often. Mm-hmm. Warrior is not a toxic term. And I'll keep it nice and tight. Here's my thoughts on it. If people have comments, whatever, send them in afterwards at me on Twitter or whatever you want. But I am very adamant about using the term warrior in my program. Because when everyone thinks, well, first of all, they say, oh, well, cops aren't warriors. I said, well, are they warriors? Are they guardians? Are they protectors? The answer is absolutely yes to all three. Absolutely. And quite often, the majority of the work by police officers is protector and guardian. But there is those small elements in time. If somebody's trying to kill that officer or the public, innocent people or their fellow cops, that is truly a warrior mindset to keep yourself alive. And it is the very rare small fraction moments, but that truly is the essence of the warrior and the protector and the guardian. And it's not one or the other. It's a combination and using that proper mindset. Even if people still wanted to argue that, I'd say that's not the purpose of my program. The purpose of my program with that term is whatever, generally speaking, when you think of the word warrior, right? And people say, fighter, grit, perseverance. I'd say, yeah. So all those terms that you come up with, and the whole purpose of my program is you take all those descriptions and how you turn it inwards towards your own mental health. That's the essence of the Warrior 21. It's all about inwards, looking after your own well-being. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Thanks for giving me a chance to say that.
And you don't also spell it the same way either, do you?
Right. Okay. Well, see, that's why I don't know if I had time to go into that. So there's, thank you. There's also, instead of the I in warrior, there's a semicolon. And that's something that truly means a lot. So thank you for giving me a moment to add this part as well. It's very, very meaningful. So I do a lot of suicide prevention work. And there's a great organization called Project Semicolon. And basically you take this semicolon, the reason they call it that, you look at it in grammar terms, which I know all of our fellow PIOs, they're very good with their grammar. And you use the semicolon in the way they describe it. And if you're going through a hard time or having thoughts of death, dying or suicide, instead of using a period and ending your life, use the semicolon, stop and pause. And I was really blown away by that. I've done some work with them years ago. So I took that mindset and just made it more generalized. And that's why the semicolons in the word warriors, every day, stop, pause, check in with yourself, see how you're doing. And if you're not doing so well, see what you can change if you're able to. If you need more help, that's also real resilience as well, reaching out for help if you need it. But then here's the other thing too. When you stop and check in with yourself and you're not, that was terrible, double negative. If you are doing okay, that's why I scratched that part. If you are doing okay, this is really important too. And I think a lot of this work, sometimes we forget to stop and acknowledge, soak in the good. If you're feeling good, like, yeah, damn, I'm feeling really good. I've been keeping my workout routine. I've been eating healthy. Soak in those good, positive moments. Don't just dismiss them, which this leads perfectly into the All Project. So the All Project, Warrior 21 is 21 days. It takes a commitment. I was trying to think, well, what's a shorter version with a lot less time commitment as well that I can put together? And just to be brief, the research on awe is just, no pun intended, it's amazing. It's awesome. And it's very closely aligned with resilience research as well as just overall positive mental health. So the All Project simply is, and there's no trickery. I'm not messing around with you or anybody. All you truly do is watch a video in the morning and evening for 5 days. Yet again, it's 100% free too. You sign up for a private Google Classroom. You do it with a cohort of roughly 10 people. You watch a video early in the morning. The videos too, it's not like these massively long videos. They're only a couple of minutes. You watch the video and then you share a brief reflection on it, as well as the other cohort people. Then you do it in the evening as well. In the mornings, it's posted at 5 a.m. So you're supposed to watch it anytime between 5 a.m. and 12. The evening one gets posted at 6 p.m. And I just ask that you do it at any point before you go to bed. And seriously, I'm not messing. People really, really enjoy it. And again, it's these little brief moments. At the very least, you're a guaranteed break twice a day. And this, yet again, you come on, for PIOs, no matter what your hours or your shifts are, you're promising yourself a break that you most certainly deserve. And the videos that are research backed ways that can elicit awe. And so here's the other thing I'll tell you. With awe is not just going to the Grand Canyon, seeing the Northern Lights or the Great Barrier Reef. All moments are there truly in everyday life interactions if we're open to it. And that's really important. The key, if you go out trying to find awe, you'll never find it. If you go out being open to the opportunity of an awe experience, you will see it everywhere. And this, yet again, and I know I want to throw it back to you to get what you think. I know it's your show, but I'll throw a question at you. What do you think? But here's the thing: this is not soft, fluffy BS. I just taught this to a 10-day homicide investigators course, and 98% of them absolutely loved it. You're wondering, well, what about the 2%? Okay, nothing's ever 100%. I'll take 98%. I don't know. What do you think? This whole concept of awe.
No, believe me. Trust me. I've had my moments. I've definitely had my moments where I have. I'll give you an example. I ride a bike a lot, so I go ride a bike trail. It's my way of working out in the morning. So I get a bike,
okay,
ride, and I'll do 30 miles or whatever down a river. Wow. And I stop halfway through. I'll have a protein bar, drink a shake, And I'm, looking at, I'm looking up, and you get the chills all of a sudden. And there's nothing really to look at. It's just, and I get chills, and all of a sudden I feel 100% better, just because I'm out relaxing. I'm all of a sudden I feel calm and energized, and I can go and I can ride. Might finish the half of the ride, come back, and my day is great. Those days that I've had those awe experiences, it's lasted 2 or 3 days later.
That is awesome. That's really cool.
So I mean, I've had those. Yeah. I had another one involving a family member that had died. Kind of when I was younger, I had a grandfather that died when I was in my 20s. He died. I wasn't home for it, and so I got hired for my first police job. Now I got to get a suit to go for the swearing in ceremony, right? And so I'm with my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife. We're at the store buying a suit. The guy, they take the tags off the suit, and they throw them down on the countertop. And I look down at the countertop, and there's a tag and there's a name on there, and it's my grandfather's last name.
Oh wow!
And I just I get chills. My wife looks at me, and she says, "That's Grandpa just saying, you're good, you're okay."
Yeah,
and it was really calming in that. And to this day, I still have not only the suit, but I have the tag, because that was just an awe moment for me.
Yeah, and the examples you give are so distinct and different, right? One is a specific moment, almost, and in one sense, an awful moment of somebody close to you passing, but also having that profound experience, and with just seeing that tag, how obviously it'll stick with you the rest of your life. And then you look at the first one you shared, and this truly is the science of awe. The way you describe, that's ordinary if you let it be, that bike ride, and doing it nearly every day. However, and this is where it ties into resilience, you choose to look at it differently. And you take that moment to halfway to stop and probably take a deep breath and just look around probably the area that you've seen hundreds, if not thousands of times. And this is where it comes down to it. You make that choice. So here's the thing. When you tie it, I'm going to ask you to do this for me next time you do it. And for anyone else, when they do these type of things, remember as a kid, most people, growing up, say I don't know, say you had an older brother or an older sister, and they tripped you and you fall down, and they're like, they say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that." And usually us as kids, what we would say back then, you did that on purpose, right? Exactly. This is why I say that term is negative only if you keep it in the negative mindset. Let's flip it upside down. And for you, next time you do your bike ride, you stop, you look around, you say to yourself, I did that on purpose. You took that bike ride on purpose. It takes only a few seconds to think about that, but purposely, hey, I did this on purpose. I'm looking after my mental health. I'm giving myself this, whatever, how long it takes, break from the craziness of the world, because I need this and I deserve this and I earned this. And it's that idea of just those brief moments, instead of we're not robots and not just going through the motions. And again, here's my challenge to any of your listeners that drive, walk, bike the same route every single day. Next time you do it, find something little, both pun intended and not, that you see every day, but look at it differently. And and you know what? This is where people, well, that sounds stupid. Okay, don't do it. Go find something else. But how about push yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone? Because I tweeted a photo a couple of last week or 2 weeks ago. There was this little flower. And I kid you not, maybe this does sound stupid to people. This is where maybe as the older I get, so part of me, I'm a bit healthier, not giving a crap what people say anymore or think. But there was this little flower on the floor that I saw multiple days. And then I actually just stopped and I looked at it and I said, oh, wow, it's really cool. And it's still there. And I thought about it. For me, whether it was an awe moment or I don't know, but it gave me a moment to just stop and look at something pretty. And I deal with some heavy stuff almost every day. And this is where, when I tweeted it out, I wrote it. I said, you know what? If 15 years ago Jeff saw this, he'd probably laugh at me. And I'd say, you know what? Not today. Not anymore. Because it's these daily, regular, quote unquote, regular moments. Got to all practice what we preach, because no amount of positive thinking, if there's a takeaway to any of this, it's the idea of no amount of positive thinking can ever replace positive actions. So we can all think of a good game of trying to enhance our resilience, trying to experience an awe, but let's actually work in progress every day. And every one of us deserves this, especially PIOs.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's probably the number one thing, the way to kind of close out the overall discussion is we have to get out of our comfort zone and find ways to deal with stress and build our own resilience.
Yeah.
Do you have any those are kind of simple suggestions. Do you have anything else you could offer real quick?
Well, honestly, it's a couple of minutes of controlled breathing. Start off with 1 minute, play around with the gratitude practice. And the experience in awe is, again, just be open for those moments. And because I didn't say it earlier, but the research, it helps with decision making. It helps you feel calmer, more focused, humble, more connected to people in the environment. These are all great things as human beings, but also don't forget, this is hardcore strategy. This stuff will help you be better at your job as a PIO. Also handling ambiguity. Part of awe has that like profoundness of, I don't really understand what's going on here. And it helps you be okay with that. Isn't that part of the life of a PIO? So and sometimes don't overthink it. Just freaking enjoy the moment.
All right, Jeff, let's lighten this up. Let's do some rapid fire questions.
All right.
Favorite drink of choice?
Flat white coffee. I'm sure people are going to have to Google what it is. Not just coffee, a flat white coffee.
I've had it. I know exactly what it is. I've had it. Chocolate or vanilla?
Always vanilla.
What's a must-read book in your mind?
Dr. Rick Hansen, Resilient.
All right, so favorite food?
Yeah, I know this is rapid fire. I've got the top two are either cookies or French fries, but I'm gonna go with French fries.
That's okay. You could do it too. That's fine.
All right.
And what would be your superpower if you could get one?
I'm stumped, and I don't know why. So, as dumb as this answer is, my superpower would be to give away my superpower to somebody that's really certain of the superpower that they want. Does that count or no?
Hey, it's whatever you want. That's cool.
It's an original answer, I'm sure, right?
It's very original. Absolutely. All right, Jeff. So, final thoughts. Anything you'd like to add before we close this out?
Just, I had a good time doing this. I hope you did. I hope your listeners do. And it's that idea of we're in really tough work. We're in really tough times. We've got to have hobbies. We've got to be able to have positive coping strategies to handle the tough work that we signed up for. And having and finding that meaning and purpose and just little practices, allowing ourselves to have bumps in the road, but to make sure they don't turn into roadblocks, and reaching out for help when we need it. And then also making time for the good. And and just each day, take that pause, look after yourself. And then when you find something that works, don't be selfish. Share it with other people as well. Spread it.
Awesome. Jeff, how can people best reach out to you if they want to learn more about you, possibly connect?
I'm on LinkedIn. If people look me up, Jeff Thompson. On Twitter, I'm at Jeff T Ph.D. Those are probably the easiest ways. And if people want, they could also send me a private message on those two platforms. One other quick thing I just thought of the top. If people go to resilienceSymposium.org, we did, it's all about resilience, no surprise there. And we did a symposium this past year on awe specifically. And there's a bunch of videos for free, all completely free access of the smartest people on this planet that research resilience and awe. So I recommend people have a look at some of those videos. And what I did is I chopped a lot of them up into small little bite-sized pieces. So like 1 minute, 2 minute video clips as well. I think people would.
So that's resilienceSymposium.org?
Yep.
All right, I'll put that in the show notes too, and
awesome.
So everybody can link into that as well.
Thank you.
Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You did an awesome job. I knew this was going to be good. This is the listeners got a great resource in you, and I'm sure you're going to get people signing up for one of your two projects. So, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate you having me.
And that's Dr. Jeff Thompson for episode 44. Thanks for coming on the show, Jeff.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to contact the show, please email us at thepiopodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, Be safe.